This episode of On the Beat is brought to you by Ingles. Shop online with Ingles Curbside Pickup. New curbside stores opening every week. Please welcome Mike Griffith.
Well, hey, everybody. Wow, what a furious week of action. And I got to be honest, I don't know that it's been a great week for Georgia football. Spring football, we're all excited, ready for next Saturday's G-Day game. We get to put our eyes on this football team and some of the new talent that we've been hearing about. It certainly it looks like another good football team. We're hearing, good reviews out of the scrimmage, the second scrimmage, everything I'm hearing. Stetson Bennett really asserting himself, looking like that 24-year-old, 60-year quarterback that he is. Now, keep in mind, it's a lot easier to run with the football as a quarterback when you know you're not going to get hit. And there's nobody hitting the quarterbacks right now. So that is something to keep in mind anytime I hear, and having gone to these scrimmages, not necessarily at Georgia because everything's so closed at this day and age, but back in the day when everything was open and I covered other SEC schools and we would go to these scrimmages, you got to understand these are all scripted for the offense to have success. The quarterback doesn't get hit. Guys don't get tackled all the way to the ground. And, for those of you watching that played football, you understand, that pain element is part of the game, that you do play differently when you know that there's a chance that you might get hit in the back of the head. There is a little bit more trepidation, and it does test your nerves a bit more. So I'm not going to get too carried away with this offense because of that factor, because we know they don't hit the quarterbacks, but also we know that the secondary is very untested, right? We know that it's a young group, and in some areas it's untested. Now, Christopher Smith, absolutely. Ringo was not the best in coverage last year in terms of consistency. He was okay, but he's not some lockdown Eric Stokes, Tyson Campbell kind of guy. You have to understand that. And Keeley won't be. I think because of the youth in the secondary, and I guess I'll start there. I guess we'll start out recapping the second scrimmage last Saturday. I just get the feeling Georgia's going to play more zone. I know that Kirby likes to play quarters and it's kind of a matchup zone concept. It's really more, it's complicated. There's a lot of man principles in it, but they play it in a matchup zone kind of way. And I know that's Kirby's bread and butter and was when he was winning 4 national championships at Nick Saban's side. But I think Kirby probably even recognizes that this secondary can't do the things that the last few secondaries have done for a couple of reasons. One, they're not as good in the secondary, quite frankly. Not yet. There's a lot of talent and some really talented 5-stars coming in the secondary, but they're very young. And so this year, it's going to be a green and growing squad, and I think you have to start out slow, particularly because you lost a lot of punch out of that front 7, and you're not going to have the same amount of pressure. Now, Georgia's still going to get pressure, and you've still got very good players, but last year was elite. It was epic, right? It was historical. It was legendary. And there will be a drop-off in the front 7. So you're not going to get as much pressure. Your guys are going to be in coverage longer. The defense is not going to be as effective, as dominant as it was a year ago. I think that's a given. Now, offensively, you bring back enough guys that you could see some growth. I've told you before, I like this running back duo better than last year's. I like McIntosh and Milton better than I liked Zamir and Cook. Now, I think Cook is very good. I think you'll see him get drafted, and we'll talk about draft projections here in a minute. But I don't put James Cook on DeAndre Swift's level. Could Kenny McIntosh be special? Could Kendall Milton be special? I think they have a higher ceiling than Cook and Zamir did. So I feel good about the running backs. I think the offensive line is strong. And yes, we will get to Amarius Mims in a moment. Even with Mims gone, I think that Mims actually hurts you more in 2023, 2024. Maybe 2023. This was going to be a 3-year guy. Okay. This was going to be a guy that was probably going to work his way into the starting lineup this year. Yes, he was. And he knew that. So throw that out. Everybody wants to go, well, he wasn't going to start, and that's why he's leaving. Not true. That's a false narrative. It's a convenient narrative. It's absolutely not true. but he was a guy who was going to play some this year. Look at him like he was going to be this year's Broderick Jones. Last year in year 2, we saw Broderick Jones start to fight his way into the lineup. And by the end of the year, I thought Georgia's best 5 included Broderick Jones at left tackle. I think Amarius Mims was going to fight his way into the starting lineup. And then 2023 was going to be his All-American top 10 NFL draft year. I think Mims leaving hurts you more from a perspective, and it also opens the door and makes it that much easier for the next guy. But look, this is the way it is everywhere. It's not just here. Alabama has 5-star Agiye Hall receiver in the portal. Remember him? He's the guy that dropped the pass inside the 5-yard line, the play before Carter blocked the field goal, the play before Cook went 67 yards. You can thank Agiye Hall. Now, who knows? Maybe Georgia will get Agiye Hall out of the portal, and Georgia fans won't remember that, and they'll say, oh, yeah, all's forgiven, Agiye, because he's a super talented guy. But do you want to manage a player who has been suspended at Alabama? Let me tell you, it takes a lot to get suspended at Alabama, right? Do you want to take that guy on? I would say probably not. So my thoughts are this. I think the defense will drop off. I don't know how substantial it'll be. Probably not as substantial in the run game as in the pass game. I think there will be more pressure on the offense to produce. I think the run game will be better. I think that bodes well for the play action game. But I also think that your receiving core is not going to be much better than it was at the end of last year. Again, I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to forewarn you right now that if you are watching me because you are thinking you're going to hear what you want to hear, I'm the wrong guy. Okay, those are different. I'm going to tell you how I think it really is. And honestly, I don't think it's optimal for Georgia. Okay, I think this has been a tough off season. I'm not going to say that Georgia's lost the off season because they haven't. But if you're asking me if the team is ascending or descending, right now I would tell you that it's taken a dip. And not just because of Amarius Mims. To me, again, that hurts more down the road. The Warren Brinson incident last week is a huge red flag. It's a huge red flag because what in the world is a player doing drive-by with gel pellets on campus? That's not fun. That's not even something a 14-year-old gets away with. That is not good behavior. That is irresponsible. That is a lack of accountability to your teammates and to the scholarship at the University of Georgia, which is an incredible value. As you all know, we all follow the recruiting. These kids will crawl across a desert to get a jersey at Georgia. And this guy, Warren Brinson, in year 3, is out here messing around doing something stupid. Now, you can argue and debate over whether you should be arrested. I can tell you this. If it was my daughter that got hit with a pellet in her sternum, I would be very upset. And I would absolutely press charges, period. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's the son of the president of the United States. If you hit my daughter with a gel pellet and she's doing nothing, I am upset. So let's take off the rose-colored glasses and treat this as we would as adults and parents. Not cool, not good, and a bad sign that that sort of behavior is taking place. Georgia built an $80 million football building that has a customized restaurant with gourmet food, pool tables, video. Anything these kids want is in that $80 million building. Anything and everything. And there's a campus downtown that's like no other in the country. It's the best campus in the country, in my opinion, the best college town. What in the world are you thinking? So, rant over, red flag that where is the leadership? Where is the leadership? Where is the accountability? To me, this is the first sign that the leadership is not strong. And we didn't have this last year. We didn't have this happening last year. And when players are going astray off the field, that is an indication that they are not all in and committed to the cause of winning football games. It's also a sign that they feel entitled. And these are two bad things. So it's up to Kirby Smart to get his house in order. He did. You'll remember a few years ago, there were 6 arrests in 6 weeks, and that was bad, right? That was the year before COVID. And Kirby had Brenton Cox and was it Beal? Was it Beal running steps? And now Beal's a sixth-year contributor and will be a team captain. He grew up, okay. Kirby's got to do what Kirby's got to do. There's not going to be any interviews tomorrow. I think this is related to the Brinson incident. I think it's related to the Mims transfer. I think Kirby's saying, you know what, guys? We don't want to talk. We don't want to put our football team out in front of y'all right now. We got some things to take care of in the locker room. So as of right now, they have canceled availability for tomorrow night. There will be no interviews as of right now. Kirby Smart will not talk on Thursday night. He's going to wait till after that. He does not want to deal with these issues. Do you blame him? What could Kirby Smart say right now that would make you feel better about Warren Brinson's off-field incident and Mims in the portal? Probably not much. And I'll say this for Kirby. When he talks, I'm not saying that he won't use the media, but I think Kirby is a pretty transparent guy. And I think Kirby is pretty direct. And right now, some of the things that Kirby would say, I don't think fans would want to hear. Because I think I think if I'm Kirby Smart, I'm pretty upset. I'm pretty disappointed in Brinson. I don't think they were shocked by Mims. I will say that. Mims is not a surprise. This was rumored for weeks. The coaches, the players knew about this for weeks. I have been hearing and getting smoke on this week after week after week. And you say, well, why didn't you report it? And the answer is because you want to give the staff and the player every opportunity to work this thing out. And you don't want to become a part of this. You have to let the story play out. And so, yes, while it had been rumored that Mims was going to transfer, had been talking about transferring, you're thinking to yourself, give Kirby time, give Stacey Searles time, give Cedric Van Pran time, give the team time to work this out. It didn't work out. So Mims is in the portal. Someone's asking me, what players are you blaming for not demonstrating leadership? Wade Wolfers wants to know. It's a collective thing. You know, you can't just say, well, it's this player's fault or it's this player's fault. It's a collective thing. When you have great leadership, it permeates throughout the organization. There were signs that this could be an issue. There were 18 game captains last year. 18 different guys were game captains last year. Only four of those guys are coming back, okay? The 4 game captains from last year that are back are Nolan Smith. We saw Nolan, the speeding ticket, and, you know, don't need to get into his deal in the construction zone and whatever else was in the, you know, not going up to that. Nolan Smith came back. Chris Smith came back. The 2 other game captains returning. See, Nolan Smith, Chris Smith. I should know this off the top of my head. Kearis Jackson. And who's the other one? Can you guys guess it? Let's turn it into a game. The 4 game captains from last year coming back. Nolan Smith, Chris Smith, Kearis Jackson, and Warren Erickson. Those are the 4. So you've only got 4 out of 18 guys coming back that were captains. So you've got to have other players step up into larger roles. Stetson was not a captain last year, Patrick Willis. Stetson Bennett, which is kind of hard to believe. How can you have 18 different game captains and Stetson Bennett wasn't one of them? Well, the answer is right there in front of you. Kirby Smart told you that they were challenging Stetson to go to class. And at Georgia, if you want to be a game captain, you got to go to class. So that would be my guess, because Stetson plays a leadership position. But that's neither here nor there. It's bigger than that. This is one of those deals where when Kirby talks about the meetings that they have where they share each other's, why, okay, that needs to happen, okay? This needs to kick in. This team needs to decide who and what they are and what they want to be. And they need to be accountable to one another. Again, there's going to be a faction of fans. They're going, oh my gosh, Mike isn't painting with rose-colored, I'm not painting the rainbows and unicorns tonight. The reason why is because this is an important stage for this program. There's been a lot of different programs that have won the national championship in the last 20 years, all right? But only 2 have really been able to sustain that success to some degree, and that's Clemson and Alabama. And my question for Georgia right now is Georgia going to be one of these one-hit wonders, or is Georgia going to be able to sustain the success like Alabama and like Clemson? You know, when I covered Bruce Pearl, and he had great success at Tennessee, one of the things he told me is it's easier to build it than it is to sustain it. And that's the plight that Georgia finds himself in right now. Now, Kirby Smart knew this was coming. Kirby Smart is equipped and capable of maintaining because he saw Alabama do it. He was at Nick Saban. He was a part of Alabama doing it. I know Nick gets all the credit, but Kirby Smart was a big part of the equation at Alabama. So Kirby knows what it takes, right? That said, the landscape right now has added another degree of difficulty to sustaining. It's easier to sustain when you can stockpile talent, when we can say iron sharpens iron. Now that there's this one-way portal out, you can't stockpile talent because some kids, they don't want to stick around and wait their turn. Now, again, I don't think that's what happened with Mims. I really don't. In fact, I was told by somebody that knows that's not what happened with Mims. I think what happened with Mims was he came out before NIL was a thing, and I think he probably wants to test the waters and see what and you know, renegotiate, right? I did a column today, and I'm not sure how many of you read it. I hope you read it. It's how college football is a whole different deal. And I talked about how negotiations have always been a part of college football, all right? You know, for all you folks out there that believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, cover your ears. But for years and years, there has been some degree of negotiation. I'm not going to say it's an NCAA violation or what maybe the negotiation was a piece of pumpkin pie or just a friendly conversation. But there was a negotiation to get kids to go to certain camps. And once you got them on your campus to go to a certain camp or the certain rivals or the certain, whatever camp to evaluate, then the negotiation became trying to get them on your campus for a visit, right? Then the negotiation was trying to get them to sign. And then once you had them sign, boom, you had them in your program, you had them in a box, and now you can develop, and iron sharpens iron, and they grow. Not anymore. Now you have to negotiate with these players to come back every year if they're really good players, or they'll negotiate with you. It was less than 12 hours after the national championship game when we turned on Good Morning America, and Stetson Bennett told the world, think about this. This is Georgia football greatest moment in 41 years. You got the spotlight. Your quarterback is on national television, and he says he's not sure he's coming back because he's not sure he can trust the staff. This is what you do in the limelight? That was a red flag. That was a red flag. That was not a good moment for Georgia, for Kirby, or for Stetson. And then you go, well, he wasn't himself, all right? Some people, I don't know whether he was hungover or not. I'm not going to say he was. I don't know. He might have just been really tired. I just don't naturally assume that somebody of that stature, a championship quarterback, would put himself on national television compromised. I certainly wouldn't do it. You would think there's leadership and other people around him. I'm just not going to buy that it was okay. Well, then 3 weeks ago, we asked Stetson, well, what was it, you didn't trust or whatever? He said he had to meet with Kirby to see what the deal, what Kirby had was his quote. And he said he had to be selfish with the decision. He had to be selfish with the decision. Okay. And he was. And he heard what he needed to hear from Kirby. And so he came back. Problem. 84 other guys are now going to be selfish with their decision. All right? Everybody is selfish with this is a new world order. Number one, and Kirby identified it 4 years ago, we're in a me first generation now anyway. We're in a me now. People want it, this generation, and these doggone kids with the internet, they want it right now. If I don't know the answer, I'll Google the doggone thing. Give me it right now, right? I'm the old man shaking my fist. But this is the world we live in. This is the world we live in. We want it now. I'm spoiled. What? What do you mean Starbucks doesn't have the Emperor's Cloud tea bag today? I want Emperor's Cloud now. And if I don't get it, I'll go to another Starbucks. Better yet, I'll just order it on my phone and have the grocery deliver it now. This is the world we're in, okay? So this is what Kirby and the staff is trying to manage. Now you open the door and say, and if the kids don't get it now, we're going to let them leave. Holy cow, does this make things even more challenging? Not only that, but we're going to let other schools pay them for name, image, likeness, and they can bribe the kid to come to their school. Holy cow. So not only can they leave right away, but other schools can offer NIL inducements for them to leave right away. How in the world do you have any sort of discipline and accountability if you're a head coach when these players can leave now? I reflect back to my military training, and I do that often in here. And I know it's not the same as being on a college football team in many, many respects. And I certainly don't take light of the veterans that served. I appreciate every one of them, particularly those that saw active duty in warfare. I was very fortunate to be in peacetime. I want to make that disclosure because I think there is a difference. Yes, I was a full-time soldier and airborne and all that stuff, but I wasn't the hero of these guys that went overseas and fought the battles. Those guys are on a whole nother level, okay? So I don't want to make light of the military when I draw these comparisons to athletics. But there are a lot of similarities when it comes to the esprit de corps that you build with your teammates and the level of buy-in that you need to be a successful team. Everybody has to be willing to play their part and be selfless and be willing to cover the other guy, right? That's a part of being a part of a team and a good functioning unit. I think back to the training that got me there. I think back to the training that broke me down from that selfish, self-centered high school 18-year-old into the effective soldier that I was for 3 years, ready to go to combat for the flag on my shoulder, if nothing else. And what it took, right? What it took was them intimidating, breaking me down, disciplining me, pushing me harder than I wanted to be pushed, taking me out of my comfort zone so that I could understand that rather than worry about my pathetic little self, I need to be mission-oriented and think about the bigger picture. Quit feeling sorry for yourself. Do what we tell you to do. Trust your leadership. That's a hard lesson to learn at 18. There's some people that never learn it. But when there's no options, you don't have a choice. You're going to do what that drill sergeant tells you to do, or he's going to kick your ass from here to next week. You're going to do what that football coach tells you to do, or you ain't getting off the bench, all right? Or you ain't making the travel squad. So you don't really have an option but to push yourself harder than you thought you could ever go. I remember many times I would do something I would have never believed. And I look back on it now and go, what was I doing? But you know what? Those guys had me convinced that I could do it, and they took me out of my comfort zone. And when you start conquering things that you don't think you can conquer, you become a stronger, more capable, more confident self. And it happens in athletics, in training, and all of you that played sports know what I'm talking about. You had that coach that pushed you harder than you thought you could go, and you became stronger than ever, right? But now you don't think you can do it? You check out. Oh, whoa, too much. I'm out of here, man, right? What if they had offered me the opportunity to quit the military? Well, frankly, I wouldn't have, because my biggest fear would have been going back to my hometown as a failure. And I thought about that. And that kept me motivated. I had something to prove, right? That was my mindset. A lot of these other guys, they don't got to go back to their hometown. They'll go to another 5-star program with an $80 million building and a new pool table and a new college town and new gear. They don't got to go back home. They just transfer to another school and hit the reset button. That makes it much more difficult to train a player when the player has that easy out. Okay. So this has changed how coaches have to manage young people in general, right down to the verbiage, right? And this is a whole nother topic, politically incorrect, whatever. A lot of the silly, the words that were used for shock, were used to grab attention, right? Because when you're 18, 19, and 20, guys, we're pretty thick-headed, aren't we? You get a 16 to 20-year-old young man, okay, and we're pretty thick-headed. It takes a lot to get through to us. It really does. That's just, maybe there's a few special kids that matured earlier, but most boys, we're a little stubborn, okay? Kind of hard to get our attention at that age. You got to do a lot to hold our attention, grab our attention, and send a message. So these college coaches, they're the best motivators in the world. They really are. My favorite part of going to Georgia football practices is hearing Kirby on the microphone. It really is, because he is funny. He is hilarious. Kirby Smart is like a drill sergeant on that microphone. He's dogging these guys out, but he's doing it in kind of a funny way. So the player gets the message, right? And the other players are kind of laughing about it, right? And they know that if it's them, they go, don't let Kirby with that microphone catch you walking. He'll call Chris Smith, you're walking on my field. Do not walk on my field. Arian, you need to hit, 22 on the GPS. I'm watching the GPS, just individual. And he's just throwing these random comments out, freestyling with some PG-13 language, because again, they're kids. And it's great. And you think, man, this, it's like Ben Cleveland said, you want to run through a wall for a guy like Kirby. You guys saw that All I Want to Do Is Eat video. Doesn't Kirby Smart look like the kind of guy that you want to play for? He sure does. Okay. But now you got to be careful. You can't lean on these kids too hard. And if you don't play them when they think they ought to play, they're going to leave. Or if you don't have the NIL deal up front, and you say, you know what, maybe once you're starting, we can talk. And the other part, no, you ain't got to wait for anything. You come here and we got this ready for you right now. So there's a lot of convoluted things that are going on right now. And you know what else is going on? Tampering. Nobody's used that word yet, but I promise you, that's going to come up at some point. At some point, these coaches are going to talk about other programs tampering with players, right? Amarius Mims was recruited by a lot of programs, and a few programs came right down to the wire. Guess what? They didn't lose his phone number. And they look in at Georgia and they see that Amarius isn't the starter at the start of spring drills. Do you think they're not ringing his phone or calling his family, right? I suspect tampering. I'm going to throw that out there. I don't know that. Nobody's told me that. But I know this. If I was the other school and I had his phone number still, and I need to win championships to keep my job, are you going to call? Are you going to text mom or dad? Just checking in, wondering how Amarius is doing. Is everything okay there at Georgia? Didn't see him in the starting projected lineup. We could sure use a right tackle. You don't think that's happening? Of course it's happening. So what's the point of all this? We're all blaming everybody. It's everybody's fault. No, listen, the point I'm making is this. It is harder and more complex for a head football coach than it's ever been before, because it's harder to manage the players, it's harder to maintain the players, and it's harder to retain the players. Even Stetson Bennett, the guy that Kirby Smart stuck his neck out for, the former walk-on who arguably, and this is where I always get myself in trouble because I can't keep my mouth shut, I don't know who else he would start for in the SEC. I'm just going to say it. That's said it once. A guy that Kirby went all in on and gave this opportunity to, and the very next day after winning the national championship, he's not even sure he's coming back to Georgia. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So if that's how Stetson feels, what about the 5-star? Well, we saw about the 5-star. Jermaine Burton said, okay, JT Daniels is leaving. That means we're not going to play 4 and 5 wide. We're not going to throw the ball 35 times in a game. I'm out. So he's out. JT goes in the portal the 19th. Burton goes the same day. Not a coincidence. Now, if you're a tight end or a running back, oh, man, you love this. You love it. If you're a tight end, Bowers is coming back. Eric Gilbert is engaged. We're seeing Brett Seether making some media appearances. That tells me he's doing some good things. Oscar Delp, an all-world recruit talent, Man, you're stacked with some tight ends, man. So what's Darnell Washington going to do? I don't know. That'd be the next one I'd look for. I'd say, oh, man, I hope Georgia can keep Darnell Washington because this is a contract year for Darnell. Again, Darnell has a family to think about. He has to produce this year. He has to produce this year and to get to the league because he's got a family to support. So does he stay at Georgia? If you're Darnell, do you stay or do you go somewhere where they promise you're going to be the feature guy and get 50 targets? Or do you stay at Georgia where you know you got to split targets with Brock Bowers and Eric Gilbert and Oscar Delt and Brett Seether? So I'm not saying he's leaving. I don't know that he is. He was out talking to the media last week. We had a good talk with him. There's a YouTube video. There's people beating me up and other people because we're asking him these questions like, you know, how did it feel last year when you were hurt? And Brock, you know, you wonder, how did you handle it? And he goes, well, my job was to cheer. And yeah, it was tough. Okay. You know, Darnell's a grown man. You know, we're not talking to some 12-year-old that can't handle this. You want to know. And he handled the interview really well. And he said he takes a day-by-day approach. And really, that's all any of us can do when you think about it. So I thought Darnell handled the interview well. I didn't get from it that he's absolutely staying from Georgia, and I didn't get from it that he's absolutely leaving from Georgia. The reality of it is each one of these kids has a decision to make because it's Georgia, because it's elite, because the guys here that have been recruited, most all of them are the best of the best. The best of the best. And there's an old saying, and I say it to the players, and they all agree. Georgia ain't for everybody. This is a tough place to make it if you're a football player. Now, the rewards are fantastic. If you follow the directions and you follow the training program, I mean, we're going to see the results this year, folks. We're going to see, today I did a story. There's going to be 14 dogs drafted, at least. That's projected by ESPN. That will tie the record for the most from any program in one draft. And that's projected to happen this year. That's what Kirby Smart has built. Unfortunately, he's built it at a time when they've created a rule where players can leave and go anywhere they want after 1 year. It's almost unfair. It's almost like Kirby came to Georgia. He invested 6 years to build this championship program. The facilities are built. The players are stockpiled. And now they change the rules on them. Now all the rules change. It's just not fair. I'll tell you what is fair and better than fair is excellent is our friends at Ingles. We can count on Ingles for that consistency to serve us in the most elite manner every time we go in there. Through thick, through thin, good times now, tough times in the pandemic, Ingles was always there. Let's take our halftime break and recognize our sponsor, Ingles.
It's in our hearts to feel for you. There's been ups and downs, turnarounds, good days and some bad. But we stand together for worse and for better. We'll always have your back. With open arms, heart to heart, hand in hand. Community strong.
Well, everybody, back for the second half, and I don't think I can top the first half. I just don't think I can bring, you know, I've still got a half a mug of the green tea. All you people that accuse me of having something else in this mug, it's green tea every time. I can't possibly function like that. No, I have to have the. Now, on the DawgNation cruise, and I don't know if it's too late. If it's not too late, I hope you all will sign up for this. I'm still trying to envision how this DawgNation cruise is going to work. It's April 25th through the 28th. It's myself, it's Brandon Adams, and it's Jeff Santel, and the big boss, BJ Sweeney, who doesn't like to be named and likes to stay behind the scenes. But on this particular trip, he'll be on the boat with all of us. So anybody that wants to talk about DawgNation with BJ, you will have a captive audience. I'm trying to imagine, like, are we all going to just sit around and talk about Georgia on a boat in the Caribbean? Like, really? And do I drink the green tea or do I reach for do I reach for a beer? No, I don't think I can do that. I think we got to keep, the green tea. And then another part of the DawgNation trip is we're all going to watch the national championship together at some point on this boat trip with Royal Caribbean. And I'm excited. Listen, I've never been on a cruise, okay? I've always been apprehensive for some reason. It's like, well, if I get on a cruise, I've looked at what's on this Royal Caribbean boat, this Independence of the Sea. This is unbelievable. I mean, the room is, there's a balcony, and I'm like, you know what? I can do this. Like, I'm excited. This is something cool, and I hope a lot of people sign up for it. It's a cool 4-day trip, and but we're going to watch the national championship game. And the fourth quarter and the last, but what are we going to do the first 2.5 quarters? The first half, what are we going to do? We're all going to just sit there and be like, man, that was messed up. Man, that's terrible. Yeah, because the first half was awful. Now, it helps that you already know the ending and you know Georgia's going to win. But does anybody really like going back and watching the first half of that game? I mean, other than George Pickens making that unbelievable catch, that was not a very pretty half of play. But that's going to be just one small element. There's going to be good times, surprises, Q&As, and plenty of time for us to hang out with the passengers. So anyway, I'm looking forward to that. That's the Royal Caribbean DawgNation Cruise, April 25th through the 28th. You can go to our homepage. If you're interested, it goes out of Cape Canaveral. I've already made my plans. So that's going to be that. So the first half of the show, we talked about the challenges, and I talked to you a little bit about, again, I forewarned you, right? There was the warning came on there. This film is not suitable for all Georgia fans who want nothing but good news and happiness, right? That was the warning. There was this, I need to have Carvel do like a filter. Mike Griffith warning, tonight's show is going to contain a lot of harsh doses of reality. But the message, the takeaway, is everybody's going through it, okay? It's not just Georgia. Now, it affects Georgia more because Georgia has so much talent. It affects Alabama more because Alabama has so much talent. Now, on the back end, Georgia's going to be able to get some guys too, if they want them, right? You heard Dabo Swinney say recently that his transfer portal's inside that building, i.e., he's not going to reach for a player through the portal when he's got options within his own program that he's developed. And that still remains a best case scenario for these coaches. In a perfect world, you develop all your own talent and from within, and kids grow and develop and grow into these positions. But as we talked about, this one-time transfer, what I think is tampering, and I don't even know how you can trace tampering. It's not like the NCAA can get, phone records. Like if it was the FBI, they could, tap phones and things. That's not going to happen. So that's what makes it hard, is how can you prove somebody tampered or whatnot. But the point I'm trying to make is everybody's going through this. Okay. It's a challenge for everybody. And Georgia's already kind of gone through it. They've lost 5 stars before. Justin Fields. Listen, I truly believe this. Justin Fields wasn't going to win any more games here than Jake Fromm did. He wasn't. Jake Fromm was every bit as good for Georgia as Justin would have been. Why? Because Jake fit the offense they were running. Now, if you put Justin Fields in this offense right now with Todd Monken, lights out, baby. Let me tell you, if you put Justin Fields in this offense that Stetson's running, it would be unbelievable. But that wasn't the offense they were running in 2017, 2018, 2019. You were running a more conventional pro-style offense. Not as many RPOs, right? More of a pro-style attack. Jake could throw, Jake could make the pre-snap reads, like JT Daniels, right? JT fit that style of, but the offense has shifted. Why did the offense shift? Because the personnel shifted. Because all the receivers got hurt. And Kirby Smart looked out there one day and said, how in the hell are we running 4 and 5 wide when we've only got 7 healthy receivers? You can't do it. But you know what Georgia had? Great tight ends. And it all just kind of happened. JT gets hurt, receiving ranks are thin, Stetson goes in, you strike a new balance and you start winning, and Kirby goes, let's roll with this. This is working. That's what you do. You do what works. And whether or not JT could have come in, I think JT could have won a national championship too. But why take the chance and change things up is where Kirby's coming from. So that ship sailed. But my point is, You've lost 5 stars. Brenton Cox was a 5-star, right? He left and went to Florida at a time when Florida was more competitive with Georgia than they are right now. And everybody, oh my gosh, Brenton Cox is at Florida. This is going to – it's okay. It's okay. Brenton got you in 2020, but that wasn't because of Brenton Cox. It was because your offense couldn't do anything. It's because they went out 3 and out like 4 out of 5 series and kept putting Kyle Trask out there, and Trask kept torching your secondary because Richard LeCount was injured and Jordan Davis didn't play with the elbow. And it wasn't the same Georgia defense. That was right after the Kentucky game. And the Gators got it rolling, but it wasn't Brenton Cox that did that. You've lost great players before, is my point. You're going to lose more great players. All these great teams are going to lose great players. This is the new college football. The toothpaste is out of the tube. We're not going back. So, as Kirby said, when somebody asked him about this new reality, and I forget how he put it, but some writer or personality asked him, if he was exasperated or, how hard is this crazy? He said, I don't look at it that way. This is my world, and it's my job to make it work in this world. Kirby's not a guy that sits around and feels sorry for himself, okay? You tell Kirby, hey, Kirby, here's the ingredients you got. He's going to make a cake with those ingredients. He's not going to go, well, I don't have this. And look, this is what I got to work with. It's what I'm going to win with. That's one thing about Kirby Smart. And I've covered a lot of great coaches, and Kirby is one of them. Certainly, I'd put him there with, I had, covered guys like Izzo and Pearl and Fulmer and, who are some of the Gene Stallings, I thought was a great coach. And Kirby's a great coach too. And he doesn't waste time on inconsequential things. One of his strengths, and Dan Lanning identified this a couple years ago, is that Kirby Smart's time allocation is supreme. This is not a guy, and I've told you this before, this is not a guy that wastes time on tomfoolery. He doesn't have time for nonsense. His formula is very simple. Does this help us win a national championship? Yes or no? And 95 times out of 100, that will answer the question of his direction and his decision-making. But right now, Kirby's got some work to do. He's got to find some leaders. He's got to coach these guys into being accountable to one another. He's got to turn all the people that are looking in their own best interests and get them functioning at one unit. And this, folks, this last week of April, this is the final push, because kids have to be in the portal by May 1st to be eligible next fall. So you're going to see some more names drop. I don't think you're going to see a lot more names drop from Georgia. I really don't. Darnell Washington would be the one if I was a Georgia fan. As someone who covers Georgia, and somebody were to ask me, who do you think? That would be the guy that I would say, keep an eye on that. I'm just not sure. I hope it doesn't happen, because Darnell he's a pleasure to talk to. I really enjoyed writing the story on him. I liked his answer. Here's a guy with superstar ability, and he calls himself a role player. Here's a guy that smiled sheepishly as he told us he never really blocked in high school. He was a receiver. And what was the impetus to block? Well, he watched his first game at Georgia, and the blocks were not good. So you better believe he got called out in the film session. And a big, strong guy like that, who's probably done everything great in his life, was not going to be the weakest link. And Darnell told himself he had to flip the switch, and he's just a destroyer now as a blocker. I mean, there's nothing that Darnell Washington can't do. Love this guy. Love to watch him catch the ball. The way he just plucks the ball out of the air. He's got incredible hands. He's an NFL player. He really is. But he's a guy who has to be serious about this decision. It's not just a decision for him. It's a decision for his family and what's in the best interest of his family. And I know Georgia hopes that's Georgia. And I know Darnell probably hopes it's Georgia. We'll just have to see. He's been injured, unfortunately, this spring. That had to be frustrating. And so we'll see what happens. I don't know. I really don't know. But that's one, because of the depth of that position with Eric Gilbert and Brock Bowers and Brett Seether and all the way the offense functions. It's not like Todd Monken can go in there and tell anybody you're going to get 60 targets. They can't even tell Brock Bowers that. And the reason why is because it's an offense that's predicated on going where the defense ain't, on taking what the defense gives you. The defense dictates to an extent where you're going to throw the football. Now, Monken does his homework, and whoever's the quarterback do their homework, and they have a pretty good idea going in where their reads are going to be based on different looks. So they already have a pretty good idea. But if the defense double covers Brock Bowers and leaves, A.D. Mitchell open on perimeter throws, then that's where the ball's going to go. That's why it's such a brilliant offense. Same with the run game. And this is part of the challenge for these linemen. It's not just, walking up to the line and knowing in your brain, I'm blocking 58 and putting your hand in the dirt. It's going up to the line with a primary play call, and maybe Stetson makes a read and has to audible to a different run. And now with your hand in the dirt, you've got to adjust who you're going to block based on that other team's alignment. And oh, by the way, don't forget, a lot of teams will shift right before the snap or slant and make it harder for you. So this is a very, very complex game. I know people go, oh, it's just football. It's not, okay? Kirby and Monken are playing three-dimensional chess, right? Chess, not checkers. Georgia is absolutely one of the best coached and most complex collegiate football teams in the country. And that is why when the Dogs went down to the Senior Bowl, they killed it. They're getting coached by NFL coaches, and they're not having any trouble because they speak the language. Because Kirby Smart teaches them NFL football at the college level. There's a lot of NFL principles, and that's another reason why, one more reason why players want to come to Georgia, right? They want to come to Georgia to reach the NFL. Ultimately, that's the goal. All right. Most every player that Kirby recruits has NFL ability, or he wouldn't recruit him. Okay. He ain't recruiting anybody going, I think he'll just be a good college player. No. If you're here, you're special. All right. You're elite, right? These are the elite ranks of college football. That's no BS, man. Same it out. That's part of the culture change. That's why you're not going to see Georgia just collapse. I don't think you're going to see that. Worst case scenario next year, 2 or 3 losses. Absolute worst case scenario. Upside, probably a 1-loss playoff team. Not sure what happens in the postseason. The magic can happen, right? You can get hot. Players can emerge. Who knows? Not going to take away that ceiling. You still have that ceiling. But there's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of elements that need to come together. The receiving corps, a great example. You lost Jermaine Burton. Let's stop pretending he's not a great player. He's a great player, and he's going to be a big addition for Alabama, and it hurt to lose him. It's okay to say that out loud. But you've got some other really good players too. A.D. Mitchell is a very good player, okay? Fast twitch, really gets off the line well, speed. I think he's a borderline NFL player. Ladd McConkey, love Ladd McConkey. Leader, incredible story. I think we're going to see a lot of Ladd McConkey on GD. I think we're going to see a lot of Ladd McConkey next year. I think he is an absolute star in the making. Kearis Jackson, he's back in 100%. Kearis, reliable, tough, leader, accountable. I think he could go back to being Stet's number 1 target because obviously teams are going to play Brock Bowers different. Wouldn't be surprised at all if Kearis Jackson led the team in receptions this year. Marcus Rosemy-Jackson, not really sure. Not sold yet. Looks better this year. Looks more physical. He's a kid who's been banged up a lot. He's got great hands, good route runner. Not sure how explosive he is. Need to see more from him. Arian Smith, we know. When he's out there, all he does is catch touchdowns, but can he stay healthy? Big question for Arian. We asked him during the interview last week. I'd suggest you see this interview on YouTube. I asked him, at some point, do you have to choose between track and football? And he said, it's my decision, but yeah. And I wonder if that was an epiphany moment for him. How long does Arian Smith keep going back and forth? Because he's very good at both, but he's not elite at either. And I think it's because he's trying to split his time. It's very hard to do that at this level. I think Arian Smith probably needs to make a decision sooner than later. That'll be interesting to see what he does. I think he's a dynamic football player. I think he's a Tyreek Hill type of football player who could absolutely be the Percy Harvin of Kirby Smart's offensive era if he focuses on football. CJ Smith is another recruit, extremely fast, but a freshman. I don't have great expectations for freshmen. I'm going to wade into the quarterbacks a little bit here. You heard me at the start of the show. Stetson is doing great on the field. He looks really good in these scrimmages. All reports, what Kirby likes that Stetson is doing and needs to continue to do is avoid that bad moment, okay? Kirby uses the word bonehead. I think that's too strong. I would not call Stetson Bennett a bonehead, but, Kirby's relationship with Stetson is, I don't even know how to describe it. It's different. Never seen anything like it. But, every now and then Stetson makes a bad decision. I think a lot of quarterbacks make bad decisions, by the way. That's not unique to Stetson Bennett. But when you come from Jake Fromm, who was darn near, Jake was really good. Jake has the lowest interception ratio, I believe, of any Georgia quarterback. Made great decisions. And I know not everybody was as thrilled with Jake as I was, but I knew what was going on under the helmet. And I loved it when I asked Jake at the combine, what do you say to people that say you don't have the mobility to escape sacks? And Jake says, I get out of pressure before I get in pressure with the pre-snap read. And that was Jake Fromm. And I think Stetson's coming along. What Kirby wants from Stetson is either make a good throw, and if it's not there, don't force it. Keep it. Run it. That's what Kirby wants from Stetson. And that's what he's been doing this spring from all indications. And it is clearly Stetson Bennett and the other guys. Brock Vandagriff, strong arm, rifle-armed guy, would probably be starting at Oklahoma. I'm not sure what offense they're running right now, but under Lincoln Riley, I don't think the offense was as complex. But Brock is here. He's in the mix. I think he's the best runner of the three quarterbacks. When Brock Vandagriff runs the ball, he looks like he's running the ball like a real running back. Forward lean, good vision, just a powerful guy. NFL prototypical size, still in development. Really applaud the Vandagriff family for their patience. Would say the same thing about Carson Beck. Really applaud the patience of Beck and Vandagriff staying in the system. Yeah, you can transfer, but you're going to have a situation there too. It ain't like somebody just sitting there going, hey, we don't have a starter. Everybody's got a starter right now. You got to beat somebody out. And you're the outside guy coming in, and you got to relearn everything. Oh, man, that's a tough decision to transfer if you're a quarterback. So Beck and Vandagriff, I would have said at the start of the year that one of those guys had to go. Now I'm not so sure. I think it's possible both could stick. I'm not, and again, I don't even want to hazard a guess if one will leave. I can't see it. I don't see it. They've stuck around. They've stuck it out. There's great riches to be had should they ever get that turn or whenever they get that turn. And it's a risk reward. The rewards here are great. Do you really want to risk an opportunity to be the Georgia quarterback? This is a special place, man. And both of those guys are coming along. Kirby said they're both coming along. They're both more capable. But they're not where Stetson is. Stetson's played a lot of football the last 2 years. So you want that experienced guy who's won a national championship, who had a heck of a game in the Orange Bowl. I thought that was by far Stetson's best game. He's had some bad games, but he's had some good games too. You want to see Stetson come to full fruition. And maybe in September, by the second week, I'll say, you know what? I'm shutting the heck up. He could start for a lot of other teams, right? And maybe we'll see that come to fruition this year. And that's going to be something to see. That's a storyline. So Georgia, I think, is very solid in the quarterback room. You heard me say earlier in the show, I feel good about the running backs. I like Dejon Edwards a lot too. I really do. They could have 3 NFL backs. And maybe I'm overshooting that a little bit. Maybe we really haven't seen enough of Dejon. Maybe we haven't seen Kendall Milton make it all the way through a season. Maybe Kenny McIntosh has had some, and Kenny's a cutback. Let's see if these guys can make it through an entire season. And you know what that's going to take? It's going to take one heck of an off season. I think back to the DeAndre Swift that I saw in 2019. Let me tell you, man, Swift was put together. And are Kenny and Kendall there yet? No, but they look better. I can tell you this, Kenny's legs have gotten bigger, and Kendall has kind of gotten leaner and more slender. It looks like he's more effective in the routes. He looks a little bit quicker. I'll be curious to see if he's still as powerful as he was. Really excited about both. I think both of those guys are highly skilled runners. They both have vision. I like these guys. I'm not ready to say it's Chubb and Michelle, but I think there's a ceiling there. I really do. I'm probably higher on these guys than anybody else. And those of you that watch DawgNation, you might say, well, Mike, that's just because you had Kenny and Kendall on your show and KM Squared last year. But that's not it. The reason I had him on that show is because of how I feel about their abilities, not the other way around. Not that I had them on the show and so I think they're good players. I thought they were fantastic players, still think they're fantastic players, and that's why we had them on the show. So we talked receivers, we talked backs, offensive line is dynamite. Again, Mims, short term, this is not a giant loss. Long term, it hurts, okay? It's not something that you can just shrug off and go, well, no big deal. Now Centel did a really nice piece tonight. Jeff Centel, who does an incredible job with our recruiting stories, talking about how this is opportunity now, right? All this does is open up a spot like, okay, recruits, here we go. Who wants to be the right tackle? Because Warren McClendon, I don't know if McClendon will go pro after this year. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. I look at Warren McClendon, though, I'll say this, and I think he can get more physically impressive. Now, I'm saying that as a dumpy middle-aged sports writer. I'm talking relative to the elite linemen that I've seen at Georgia before. I think Warren McClendon can get bigger, better, stronger. And there's still a little bit off, there's still the off-season conditioning program ahead, but I almost wonder if he's 2 more years. Broderick Jones at left tackle, I think it's going to be tough to keep him around 2 more years. I think he's a special guy. I think he's a special talent, and I think Broderick Jones could launch into the NFL after this year. Left guard, probably Xavier Truss right now. A big, strong guy, very capable guy. I think he's had a good offseason. I know Devin Willock is a guy. I've heard Micah Morris is on the move. I think we all know Ratledge. When he's got that foot injury, we can't really be 100% sure that he's going to be 100% September 3rd. That's a guy I think that probably works his way back into the lineup next year. He was going to be your best run back blocker next year. That's a heck of a card up your sleeve to have a guy like Tate Ratledge, just beast. Guys like Dylan Fairchild. I mean, there's a lot of bodies out there, plenty of depth there. But you got to find another tackle. Okay, no doubt about it. Losing Mims kicked your butt there. Defensive line looks good to me. Zion Logue, everything I'm hearing, they're going to be smaller. Okay, they're going to be smaller up front. They're going to have a little bit of a drop off in the run game. I'll be curious to see what happens in the pass game. Thorson, the punter. Dynamite leg, the Aussie. But you know what? You just don't know what those guys are going to do under the lights. You just don't know. And you're not going to know until September 3rd in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. You're just not going to know. You can, Kirby can do everything he can to replicate it, but you just don't know what these cats are going to do under pressure. And you had to watch Jake Camarda grow through that. We saw some growing pains with Jake, but my gosh, by the end of his career, Jake Camarda was as good a punter. I'd put Jake Camarda on a level with Dustin Colquitt, who was a 15-year veteran with the Chiefs. Jake Camarda was a stud, man. You're going to miss Jake Camarda more than you realize. Jake flipped the field, and he was just dynamite. He was just reliable. When you needed that boomer, he gave it to you. Pin teams inside the 10. I mean, Jake Camarda was money in the bank. I think Jake Camarda, and I know Rodrigo gets all the love, and deservingly so. The guy, but Jake Camarda, I think he's right there with Rodrigo. Maybe not as beloved because he didn't have respect to specs, but right there in terms of importance. And won the national championship, by the way. So going to really miss Jake. But I'm hearing good things about Thorson. Podlesny's a guy that looks at peace with himself. I'm going to be honest. I play pop shrink with these kickers and punters when I interview them, right? Because they really got to have their heads. It's really a mind game. When you play that position, think about it. You're warming up on the sideline, you're walking back and forth, and 5 or 6 times a game, you got to go out there and be at your best. Think about like if you were playing golf, right? We did a thing. I'm going to get on a little sidebar here. I was a golf writer once. I played Augusta National the 1 year I covered it. In 1994, I got drawn and I played Augusta National. And after that, I realized there was nothing else in life. So I was no longer a golf writer. But back before then, building up to that, I was a golf writer, and I would do golf course reviews. And one of the fun things that we would do is we would pick out the 18 toughest holes in our community, and we would drive from one course to another course to another course and play these 18 toughest holes. Well, do you know how hard it was to set up and play one hole, and then get back in the car and drive 30 minutes to another golf course and play that next hole? Think about it. When you're normally in golf, you're playing one hole to another hole. There's some continuity there, right? You kind of get into a little bit of a rhythm. You get a feel what club's working today, right? These punters and kickers, they got to go on a sideline and sit around and, oh, yeah, hey, go out there and be perfect. It's not like you can go, hey, let me get a few kicks. My third one counts. No. That one chance you get. It is a extremely mentally challenging position. So I like to play pop shrink with these guys because these guys, more than anybody, had got to be put together up here. Kicking's all up here. I mean, it's not all up here, but a lot of it's up here. That's why Kirby pushes and tests these guys in practice and makes everybody run if they miss. And all those tricks happen everywhere. Pod last year in the preseason struck me as a guy that was a little bit nervous over his own success, almost as if not sure I can measure up to what I did. That's how it struck me, right? I remember saying, well, do you have some momentum now that you've kicked a game winner against Cincinnati? Don't you have that knowing that you can do it? He said, not really, because if I base what I think of myself off of that kick, then when I have a bad kick, I have to base what I think of myself off that. It's like, no, you don't. You get to make up your own rules. You get to remember what you want and forget what you want. But the guy that I saw go before me this spring, he's very complacent. He's put together. Feel like Pod's going to be money in the bank. Very comfortable with himself. Makes minor adjustments. Very technical kicker. Proven, experienced, a national championship kicker. So I think your kicking game is good. Where you're going to have a challenge is trying to replace Camarda on the kickoffs. You can, a lot of times we just take it for granted, kicking in the end zone. Well, sometimes when a kick doesn't go in the end zone, the other team runs it back and it can be a momentum changer. That didn't happen to Georgia because of Camarda's ability to put it in the end zone or hang it up high enough that teams weren't able to get a good return. A lot of hidden yardage went out the door with Jake Camarda. See, now look at this. You tuned in tonight thinking that you were going to be worried about Amarius Mims, and I got you to forget all about him, and now you're going to be worried about losing Jake Camarda. Okay, now you probably won't. I'll take a few of your questions if you guys have them. I didn't want to tell you, 14 guys project. There's an article I did on the projections from Reed. Get this. They're projecting 4 dogs in the first round, the usual suspects, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, Devontae Wyatt, Trayvon Walker, those 4 guys. And they're predicting another 6 guys to go in rounds 2 and 3. So we're talking about 10 dogs going in the first 100 picks. That is an incredible ratio. That's 10% of the draft. Georgia is 1/130th. Less than 1% of college football is Georgia. But we're talking about 10% of the first 100 picks being Georgia Bulldogs. How special is that? They projected 14 guys to go, and one of them was Adam Anderson, who still has a pending case. So that was interesting. I see a question from Tom Gross. Does Amarius Mims leave if Matt Luke stays? Yeah, I don't think Matt Luke had anything to do with it. The Mims rumors had gone all the way back to January. So it was a long time, even before spring started. It really isn't about the playing time. Amarius could have and would have gotten playing time here. It's not about that. I know a lot of people want to go, well, he wasn't able to start, so he just leave it. It's not that simple, folks. I know that's convenient, but no. I agree with beer cans and baddies that Aaron Smith, he says he will be the version of Tyreek Hill. I think he absolutely could be. And I even told him that when I did my interview on YouTube. Hopefully you guys have signed up for our DawgNation YouTube channel. I hope you're all following me on Twitter, by the way. I think I'm like 20 people away from I'm getting close to 20,000 followers. But I think I'm on the verge of hitting 19,000. So who's it gonna be? Huh? Who's gonna follow at Mike Griffith 32 tonight? I'm gonna be looking to see who I got follows from. Send me a direct message. Tell me, hey, I followed you tonight. You promised you'd hit me a message, and you can ask any question you want on Twitter. Hey, you can ask me that here too. What else do we got here, folks? Any other questions for the evenings before we go? Love hearing all the positive news about Dom. Guy has worked very hard. Paul Moon says yes. I mean, 2 ACLs and a pulled hamstring. He's been through a lot. Evan wants to know, why is Bama so obsessed with us? Same reason Georgia's obsessed with Alabama, because that's the team you got to beat. And you're the team they got to beat. And this is how it is. This is life at the top, man. And Georgia's at the top. Make no mistake about it. Georgia is at the top of college football. Ride that wave. Ride that momentum. Understand, as Kirby said, the wind blows the hardest at the top of the flagpole. Kirby's dealing with that. but you got to ride that momentum. That's why I was saying earlier on radio, I did the Ref Radio, and I said, you got to be kidding me. Georgia hasn't sold out G-Day game? Come on, man. You got to have 90,000 at G-Day. I mean, isn't Arch Manning going to be there? I mean, surely other recruits will be there. I mean, everybody put in 93,000 on the front end for Kirby because you were so excited he was here and you want him to win a and then he does. He delivered. And he looks like he's got more wrinkles because of it. I mean, the guy, do you know how hard it must be to be Kirby Smart? Do you know how complex this is? It's fascinating. It's just fascinating to me to cover a guy like Kirby. And I don't always think he's perfect, and I don't always think he's right. I get accused of, you're a big Kirby Smart homer. I guarantee you he doesn't think that. So, yeah. But, man, he's got a lot on his mind. And we talked about it on the front end of the show. And other programs have the same stuff going on. This is not unique to Georgia. But when you're trying to be number one, you don't have the margin for error that other programs have, right? You just don't. It's the way it is, right? And you're looking for that perfect game, right? You try to throw that perfect game in baseball, you don't have the same margin for error for your pitches as the guy that gives up 9 hits and 5 runs. And Georgia now is at the top and wants to stay at the top. Any other questions tonight, guys? Anybody else? No? Guess not. Well, listen, I want to thank all of you for joining me. I want to thank Michael Carvel for his production. I want to remind you guys to watch DawgNation Daily each day at 10 with Brandon Adams. Connor Riley, Connor in coverage is typically on Tuesday nights. I think Connor will be Centel on Wednesday nights. Centel's a must watch. And that's our lineup of shows, and we enjoy doing them. I enjoy this once a week opportunity to visit with you guys. I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I appreciate you guys understanding that. I'm not trying to be extra hard on the dogs or extra easy on the dogs. I just got to call it like I see it because that's what I do. And I'm not always right. I always think I'm right. I mean, of course I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be shooting straight, right? But I'm not always right. So if you disagree and you got a different perspective, that's perfectly fine. But thanks for listening and sharing your questions and your thoughts and your thread. I love watching the comments come through, and I love reading the comments after the show. It's so much fun to see the interaction and to hear different ideas. And sometimes I'll see something in there and I'll go, you know what, I need to check into that. Or, I never thought about that. So this is a really valuable, educated audience. And I don't think DawgNation would be what we are without the audience that we have. So we appreciate you guys being a part of it. Everybody have a great week. And next Monday night, we'll be talking all about the G-Day game. My pick for the G-Day MVP, ready for this? I'm going with Ladd McConkey. That's my pre-G-Day pick. I'm all in on Ladd McConkey being the MVP of the G-Day game. Everybody have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Monday night.